Guys, I'm going to be talking about the administration of homeopathic remedies. And I'm going to be, as usual, reading from Kent, who is best remembered as the forefather of modern homeopathy. Not really, well, Wikipedia says modern, but he's basically the father of modern classical homeopathy. So, not the modern stuff that we have today in the 21st century, all the weird stuff that is going on in homeopathy, but it's the last iteration of classical homeopathy, the final form that it took. Now, we're going to talk about the administration of the remedy. What does that mean? How are you supposed to handle dosage? In homeopathy, it's called posology. How you're supposed to handle dosage and how what potency you should choose. Potency is just the strength of a remedy. It's measured from 1 to 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And let's get into it. So Kent says, um, it may be supposed by some that there is little to be said about the administration of the homeopathic remedy. By others, that there is little to be learned beyond what can be found in the writings of Hahnemann. It should not be expected that Hahnemann could lay down fast lines for the use of the higher and highest potencies when he never used them. So the founder of homeopathy, Hahnemann, did not use the strongest potencies, so 200 and up. And so that sometimes confuses people, but Kent was, of course, an advocate of extremely high potencies, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And his his style of prescribing is absolutely valid and is actually complements Hahnemann. Of course, there are people who dislike Kent and call people who follow him Kentians as a derogatory term, but that's just nonsense. I don't even want to get into that. So what he said about the use of remedies applies largely to the lower and 30th potencies. What he says about these is very useful about the administration of remedies in all potencies, but he gave general rules and nothing more could have been given at the time. Good. In some constitutions, the 1M is not repeated with the advantage, and in others, stoical several doses are necessary. So usually, of course, we don't repeat high potencies from 200, even 30 up and up. We don't repeat them. The very high potencies seldom require repetition if clearly indicated to produce a long curative action in chronic cases. But in severe acute sickness, in robust constitutions, several doses in quick succession are most useful. So when you're treating acute disease, you should be repeating. You can be repeating several times, while in chronic disease, only one dose of a high potency is enough. In a remittent fever, the remedy may be repeated until the fever shows signs of falling. So if you have a fever, just keep repeating the remedy um, until there is an amelioration. Right. Now we're going to get to some myths about homeopathy. So, for instance, it never matters whether the remedy is given in water, in spoonful doses, or given in few pellets dry on the tongue. The result is the same. What does that mean? There's so many people out there who are just kind of fanatical about giving remedies in water and saying that it's like way better. It's much more effective. It's the action is much more gentle, but more effective. And Kent says that the result is the same. So you don't really have to just double down on that. Just relax. Remedies work in any form. And who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe Kent, the forefather of homeopathy, or some person yelling on the internet? So you can decide. It has been supposed by some that by giving one or two small pellets, that a milder effect would be secured, but this is deception. There are also people who think that giving the dose a smaller physical amount of a remedy will have a milder effect, but of course this is false. Of course, the homeopathic remedy is an electromagnetic field and acts on the energy level. You're giving a field-like impulse to the body, so it doesn't matter the amount of matter you're giving to someone doesn't matter. The action or power of one pellet, if it acts at all, is as great as 10. So patients should stop asking whether how many pellets they should take, or stuff like that. It does not matter. Just focus on the important parts of homeopathy. Don't stress on how many pellets. Is it in water? Is it not in water? It does not matter. Just focus on other aspects of homeopathy. Like whether the remedy is correct, for instance. Maybe that's like a kind of important, right? If a few pellets be dissolved in water and the water is given by the teaspoonful, each teaspoonful will act as powerfully as the whole of the powder if given at once, and the whole quantity of water if drank once will have no greater curative or exaggerative power than one teaspoonful. Yes, so it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Even a drop of water, if you dissolve it in water, and a gallon of the remedy is going to have the same effect. When a positive effect has been obtained, the medicine should always be discontinued, and the greatest mischief may come from continuing to give it. Yeah, that's a very simple summary of one of the principles of homeopathy. If there's a positive effect, you should stop giving the remedy. That kind of common sense, but yeah, this is advice for maybe the layman and beginners. So just just stop the remedy if you get better. Therefore, it is not always that the technical single dose is the best practice, but the single collective effect is always to be sought. The correct observer will soon learn whether this is to be secured by a single dose or a series of doses. But after this has been secured, there is never an exception to the rule. Wait on the remedy. In acute suffering and in emergencies, the above plan is best suited. In chronic diseases, for the first prescription, the single dose dry on the tongue will be found ever the best. So he even says that the dry dose might even be better. But as we said, I think it just doesn't matter. After several doses have acted well, and when given at long intervals, the action is growing feebler and feebler, and the symptoms still call for the same remedy. A series of doses will show a stronger and deeper action. And this is even true if the potency is given much higher. So you can repeat a remedy if it stops acting, of course. That is possible. When the 30th and 200th potencies are used, it is much oftener necessary to give the medicine in water than when using higher potencies. So it's interesting. Kent says it might be desirable for the lower potencies to give them in water. So that's interesting. A lot of people use these low potencies, and the thing is that if you're a proper homeopath, you're not even going to use these very often. So I myself just usually use the higher potencies. So, but this might be good advice for people who like these. A lot of people like the low potencies because they have been brainwashed by other schools of homeopathy who are just obsessed with lower potencies, and that's kind of wrong. These potencies have much milder curative action than the higher and highest potencies, and therefore they are far more suitable to the very nervous and excitable women and children and to some men. So if you're sensitive, you might need the lower potencies. That's all this means. To suit all degrees of sensitivity in chronic diseases, the physician must have at his command his deep acting medicines. Yes, deep acting means the high potencies. You need to have those. Um, with many chronic patients, if the remedy fits the symptoms or it is the minimum, any potency will do all the curing it can in 2 or 3 doses at long intervals. So even it's not even that important. The selection of the potency, any potency will work if it's the correct remedy. Is what Kent says. So I think we better believe him. It's better to begin low and higher and go higher and higher. Well, I don't know if this is true, by the way. This is one of the things I'm skeptical about. Even Kent, I think, used, most of his prescription were really high potencies. So I don't know why he's saying it. You have to start low. Um, Maybe for sensitive people, right? Okay. Again, to give the very high potencies to the feeble and extremely sensitive, we bring back the old complaints and symptoms too violently. So be careful with sensitive people. A deep acting chronic remedy should seldom be given in the midst of a paroxysm or exacerbation, but at the close. So when you have a chronic disease, a very high potency should only be given for at the end of a paroxysm. So that means when the patient chronic disease is flaring up, that's not the time to give it. It's the time is when he's coming out of it, right? This is an old settled rule that nearly all follow. To give a deep acting remedy in the midst of great suffering would be to court aggravation and increase the suffering and use up the curative power of the remedy uselessly. Interesting. If it be a menstrual suffering after menstruation, if it be chronic sick headache, if it be intermittent fever after the paroxysm will be found the best time. Okay. The management of incurables differs widely. No two are alike. Okay. I don't know if we need to talk about this. And finally, there are some axioms. When the symptoms change, the remedy must be discontinued as it ceases to be homeopathic. That, of course, goes without saying. We are continually observing the patient and individualizing the treatment plan to the changing symptoms. The single dose in all sensitive people anticipates this change of symptoms and must be safest for general practice. Give a single dose, don't repeat, right? The repetition of the dose to intensify the action of the remedy must not be considered as the rule, but the exception. So don't repeat. It is unsafe for the beginner to indulge in the desire to repeat too much. It should always be restrained. Again, don't repeat, right? He's just saying, please don't repeat the remedy. The physician who prescribes in water universally will cause suffering in many of his sensitive patients, and it will appear to him that disease is growing worse, and he will change his remedy when he should cease to give the medicine. Yeah, so stop obsessing over this giving the remedy in water. It could even be harmful, or at the very least, it just doesn't matter. So let's just stop talking about it. I mean, the higher the potency, the greater the aggravation. Physicians who practice only in the country among people who are strong and live outdoor lives do not see the sharp aggravations. Yeah, people in the country are much healthier and will be easy to treat. People in the city are going to be sickly and broken down, so those people will see aggravations during a healing crisis. Country people withstand more abuse from repetition as well as from crude drugs. All right. That was Kent on the administration of the remedy. And thank you for listening. And if you would like to do a homeopathic consultation with me, you can find my email and telegram in my channel description. Thank you very much.